idea was this?
Hello everyone, welcome back to G-Bob Reviews. And today we're going to take a look at Father and Scout. Everyone, I suppose? I mean, it keeps going back and forth between moments of I'd rather not be here and I'm glad I showed up for my kid. And really it feels like it's geared, or trying to be geared more towards kids and adults, but it feels like it's trying way too hard most of the time. But I'll get into that more later.
Oh, that's adorable.
They're gonna sleep in tents and everything.
Wow, tense.
After going through several bipolar shifts, it eventually remembers that it's a feel-good movie, or it's supposed to be, ending with Michael and Spencer getting close together as father and son. There's a moment at the end where Spencer, Chet, and their two sons throw down and almost fall down a bottomless cavern in the mine shaft. The four of them work together to get out, despite a giant beam somehow not breaking Chet's leg, allowing them to escape. And since they work together, they forgive themselves for all the headaches they caused one another throughout the film. I suppose they were going for some sort of don't sweat the small stuff and it's all small stuff with this, but you have to look past a lot of stuff to get to that silver lining, so do with that what you will.
We're never going to move.
Seeing that this movie got a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes, and watching it for a few minutes, it's clear to see why. Unnecessary slow-mo effects that add nothing to the film. And the second one goes on for almost 5 minutes, jetting back and forth in a basketball game, which Spencer and Michael are suddenly great at, despite the film establishing Spencer being awful at sports, thinking they're a waste of time, but then, suddenly talent. Very unusual, to say the least. Next, there's a strange fisheye cam effect, which I guess is supposed to be funny, but then it goes back to a traumatic experience Spencer had as a child when he broke a bone. Again, I'm not really sure how this relates unless he broke his arm while fishing. Probably not, but they almost forget to explain this point until roughly 30 minutes later when Spencer vomits out suppressed emotion to his son Michael about him not wanting to turn out to be a bad dad like Spencer is to Michael right now. So I guess that explains it.
Do you understand the words that are coming out from my mouth?
Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
Next, forced comedy. Aside from being known for being America's dad at some point, I knew him best as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos, where he was admittedly pretty funny. But he was also a very abrasive comedian. I'm guessing because he had to tone down his material to make this appropriate for a PG movie, he just comes off as whiny and abrasive, and it's something that Michael wishes that he'd stop doing, but he never does. He's constantly telling jokes at which no one laughs at, including the audience, but suddenly near the end, the whole camp decides he is a funny guy and asks him to give a speech. What he does instead is ask the scoutmaster to take off his shirt, twist his suspenders, and wear his hat like a graduation cap, at which most of the camp laughs, but left me just scratching my head. Spencer says something about being glad he's there for bonding time like the rest of the camp, and then sits down. Then the scoutmaster adds he's glad they're all there too, and they all go to bed for the night. Not before Chet got offended by Spencer's funny man attempt, breaks his tent, and ends up giving Spencer a bloody nose. But that's Spencer's fault again because he tried to walk away but didn't? The more I try to explain this, the less sense it seems to make. I mean, it really feels like this was an amateur film crew that got together, wrangled up Bob Saget and a few other memorable actors at the time, and threw this together. But this is all they could come up with? Sorry, I'm rambling. Let's keep going. It's established very early on that Spencer has an aversion to sports, and also has claustrophobia, which lots of people have to varying degrees. In this movie, it feels equivalent to a scarlet letter. Michael is ashamed of his father passing out at the thought of crawling through a narrow opening in a cave. Then, later in the movie, they finish camp with a treasure hunt, where they have to return to this same cave. Spencer has a moment where he nearly passes out again, then Michael basically says, "You can do it!" And then the rest of the mine is fine. What was the point of that? Oh no! A narrow doorway that's well lit on the other side, and the rest of it is normal height caves. The horror! Then, when the four guys almost fall to their death, Spencer manages to find all his suppressed courage and they make it out alive because family movie. I mean, I don't want them to fall to their deaths or anything, but this shoehorn moment of brief courage followed by a bout of forgiveness and let's all do this again next year feels contrived to say the least.
I still think $400 is a little steep for a 30-year-old canoe.
I mean, not really. The film's basically held together with slow-mo, glue, and a feel-good moment at the end, so no. The only thing that was odd is the cover of the movie and my title card. There's clearly a bear on both. But after Spencer's tent gets thrashed because Chet's feel-bads were hurt, Spencer says,
There are no bears on this island.
Guess I felt a little bit awkward because bear on the cover and then no bears. Oh well.
Well, I feel sheepish.
But I guess there is an odd moment at the very beginning of the movie where Spencer sits on a piece of pizza and makes a mess of himself. Then Francine comes along and basically says, be prepared, sprays his pants with sanitizer, and spends a solid minute wiping his butt off because she's a good neighbor or something. Either that, or that was her condition for playing a minor role in the movie. I ain't gonna do this unless I gotta touch Bob Saget's butt. I can only imagine Bob Saget being like, your terms are acceptable, and they put it in the movie for plot.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You gotta turn it on all the way.
It is on all the way.
You're kidding.
Not really. It's pretty tame for a 90s movie, to say the least. But Donna does need a better bra, I think.
I just think he needs more male-oriented activities to boost his self-esteem. Otherwise, he could end up like...
Like me?
I didn't say that.
Camping will help you get closer to your son and make you want to do all those crazy things you never did in your life. It also helps if you almost fall to your death.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the moral of the movie is supposed to be. Michael spends most of his time being ashamed of his dad for being a wimp and a coward, but then forgives him for the flimsiest of reasons. I guess I'd rather that than him hold a grudge for the rest of his life.
Drum roll, please. That's your drum roll.
All in all, this generously deserves 1 out of 5 stars. First off, it's very directionless for 90% of the movie. I legit felt bored most of the time. Bob Saget is funnier in other things, so I'm not sure why making him a famous author that only Aaron Deutsch heard of. Seriously, no one ever refers to this again. But he's secretly good at basketball since he's really competitive. Then they try to bring things full circle a few times, with Michael getting elbowed in the gut at soccer, then again during basketball, showing Spencer can support his son when it counts, so hooray for that. Next, Chet and Spencer's rivalry. Chet basically doesn't like Spencer for being bad at telling jokes, but takes it too far the whole time, culminating with them forgiving each other after almost falling to their deaths. It only feels like Chet's the bad guy because there needs to be an antagonist, and Chet drew the short straw. Aside from that, it's just an odd competition between the two for a pentathlon they're all forced to play in, which is oddly spaced out and ends with a treasure hunt, which makes Spencer and Michael the winner at the end, despite performing poorly in everything else, aside from basketball. Lastly, the constant want to go home, with Spencer and Michael switching back and forth between being the one wanting to do so. Guessing they were trying to compare this to marriage, where someone has to be the level-headed one at all times, but again, they switch back and forth so quickly and for no real good reason. It's just kind of there. In the end, it didn't even matter because they both stayed, won a medal, got their name on a plaque, and unlocked Spencer's desire to be a daredevil, which never comes to fruition because the movie's done. Thank goodness. So, if you saw this growing up, I'm sorry. If you saw this for the first time because I brought it up, again, I'm sorry. But now that you've seen it, or at least a review, you can check it off a list of movies that you may have been interested at one point and never have to think about again. Thank goodness. But that's all I've got for now, so until next time, bye-bye!
No hard feelings?
No.